The rain fell in sheets, relentless and cold, as a black SUV rolled to a silent stop outside the wrought iron gates of Rosewood Hall. Thunder rumbled overhead, echoing through the trees that lined the prestigious boarding school. And for a brief moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. A lone girl stepped out. She was tall, slender, and dressed plainly. Navy blue sweater, pressed uniform skirt, and tightly braided hair tucked beneath a simple black cap. She pulled a duffel bag from the trunk herself, not waiting for the driver. Without a word, the car disappeared into the mist, leaving behind only silence and the soft splash of her boots in the puddles. Her name was Zara Nwoko, but no one here would know that. To the school, she was just another scholarship student, one of a few plucked from obscurity and given the chance to walk the marble corridors of privilege. But to herself, she was on a mission far deeper than academics. She had crossed an ocean, not for fame or status, but for something more difficult to claim: identity. Inside the entrance hall, warmth beckoned. Glowing chandeliers, polished floors, the soft murmur of returning students. A teacher offered her a clipboard and welcome packet. Zara nodded politely, spoke only when spoken to, and made no effort to impress. Let them underestimate her. That was the point. Moments later, laughter burst at the front steps. A silver sedan screeched to a stylish halt, and out stepped a girl in crimson heels and gold-studded earrings. The umbrella shielding her matched her lipstick, loud, polished, intentional. "Melody Dike," someone whispered. "She's back." Melody greeted two girls with a twirl, her designer tote swinging behind her. "Ladies, did you miss me?" she purred, posing for the junior carrying her luggage. Her perfume trailed behind like glitter. Zara watched from across the hall. The girls parted like sea foam for Melody. They followed her with wide eyes, compliments, fake giggles. Zara turned to walk away, then stopped. Something shimmered at Melody's ears, a pair of delicate gold loops. Zara's breath hitched. Those weren't just earrings, they were hers. She remembered them clearly, the last birthday she spent at home, a gift from her grandmother, too sentimental to throw away, too modest for her to wear in America, so she'd left them in her old bedroom. The one her father had said was cleaned out and passed along to their housekeeper. A slow realization settled into her chest. So that's who she is. Melody, unaware, pranced toward the dorms like royalty on parade. Zara's eyes narrowed. The dormitory was quieter. She was shown to a lower bunk in room 6A. No special accommodations, no extra privileges. Her two roommates, Tommy Balogun and Adaeze Ume, glanced at her curiously but smiled. "First year here?" Tommy asked, brushing curls from her face. "Sort of," Zara replied softly, folding her sheets with care. Adaeze raised a brow. "Sort of? You either are or you're not." Zara smiled. "Let's just say I'm new enough to learn." They chuckled, accepting her mystery. Later that evening, assembly was held in the grand hall. The headmistress, Mrs. Benson, welcomed the girls with formality and flair. After speeches, applause, and introductions, a final student was allowed to say a few words. Melody Dike, representing the student body, as she called it. She took the stage as if it were hers. "Another year of excellence, elegance, and elevation," she declared. "Let's keep Rosewood at the top." The girls clapped. Some rolled their eyes. Zara sat quietly at the back, hands folded, eyes fixed not on Melody's words, but on her posture, her speech, her need to be adored, and how easily she claimed space that was never meant for her. When the crowd stood to sing the school anthem, Zara joined, her voice low, steady. No one knew who she was. No one asked, And that's exactly how she wanted it. For now. As the girls filed out, Melody brushed past Zara without a glance. But Zara turned and watched her go. She could see the cracks, small ones, hidden under layers of noise. And in that moment, she whispered something to herself, something the wind quickly swallowed. Let's see how long shadows can dance before the light catches them. Rosewood Hall gleamed in the morning sun, its red brick buildings echoing with the chatter of returning students. In the West Wing corridor, girls moved in clusters, exchanging holiday stories, new perfumes, and gossip passed like currency. Melody Dike strode through them like a monarch surveying her court. I heard her family just bought another house in Cape Town, one girl whispered. Or was it London? Another asked. She says her dad's opening something big, like a power plant. Melody smiled at the murmurs, pretending not to hear, but every lie wrapped around her like silk. She wore a pleated designer skirt and a crisp blouse with lace cuffs, her braids freshly retouched, her earrings glinting like promises. Tommy nudged Zara as they exited biology class. Melody's at it again. Doing what? Zara asked without looking up from her notes. Building an empire out of thin air, Ades added with a smirk. She told the juniors her dad's friends with the president. Zara kept her expression neutral. Then why is she on a scholarship? Tommy blinked. Wait, she is? Most likely, Zara murmured. But it's not public, is it? Adazi shook her head. Number. And if it is, Melody's doing a brilliant job hiding it. That afternoon, during lunch, Melody stood at the center of the dining hall, spinning another tale to a circle of younger girls. My dad only lets me fly commercial when the private jet is being serviced, she said, flipping her braids with a flourish. It's exhausting, honestly. I had to wait almost 10 minutes for my luggage. Zara, seated with Tommy and Adaeze near the windows, sipped her juice quietly. She didn't need to look to know the performance Melody was giving. She could feel it. A few girls clapped. One of them leaned in. Is it true your dad is Mr. Nwoko, the one who funds the school? Melody paused, just long enough to seem bashful. Well, he's sort of like family. He's always been around. He helped with my admission. Zara's hand froze on her fork. She's bold, Addis muttered under her breath. She's desperate, Zara said softly. Later that evening, as the sun dipped low, Zara slipped out of prep and made her way to the side garden, where the laundry van usually offloaded clean uniforms. She wasn't looking for uniforms, though. She waited quietly near the gate. At exactly 6:45 p.m., a staff vehicle from the Nwoko estate pulled in. The driver, Mr. Ayula, stepped out and handed a small brown package to the matron on duty. It was labeled for MD. Zara's eyes narrowed. The matron smiled. This for one of the girls. Yes, ma'am, from her mother. Asked us to deliver it with the others. Zara stood still, unmoving, unnoticed, but her mind was racing. Mrs. Dike had sent food to her daughter through the Nwoko estate, so Melody's lies had climbed even higher. That night, in their dorm room, Adaeze rubbed lotion into her elbows and asked, Zara, do you believe in karma? Not in the way people use it, Zara replied from her lower bunk. How do you see it then? Tommy asked. Zara turned the page of her journal. I think truth has weight, and no matter how high a lie climbs, eventually it cracks under what it's carrying. The room fell quiet. Across campus, Melody sat in her bed, scrolling through filtered photos of herself. Her captions read like magazine headlines. Daughter of royalty, bound for greatness. Wealth is in my DNA. She barely noticed the bracelet on her wrist, a braided one made of old cowrie shells. Zara had made it years ago during one summer visit home for the maid's daughter, a gift she'd left behind in kindness, not expecting it to ever resurface. And now, here it was, worn by someone trying to become her. The irony was bitter, but Zara didn't hate her. Not yet. The sun had barely risen when Zara opened her trunk and pulled out her neatly folded blouses. Each one was pressed, labeled, and stored with military precision, a habit she developed in the States where identity was often the only thing you could control. She slipped into her uniform and fastened her modest belt, pausing only to lace up her shoes. The whispers had started. She'd heard them after literature class. How she was too quiet, how no one really knew where she came from, how she was probably just lucky to be picked for the school's scholarship program. They didn't know that Zara had heard every word, nor did they realize she didn't care. Let them guess. As she entered the corridor, she nearly bumped into Melody, who twirled dramatically before a handheld mirror, checking her reflection under the dim hallway light. "Oh, look," Melody said, eyes narrowing. "Charity girls early again. So disciplined." Zara didn't flinch. "Morning, Melody." Melody smiled sweetly. "Must be hard, trying to keep up in a school like this." "I manage." "You'll need more than grades," she said, flicking a strand of her braid behind her shoulder. "You know, some of us have image, presence. That's why we get noticed." Zara's gaze drifted to the jacket Melody wore, a deep blue velvet blazer, elegantly tailored. It looked familiar. Her heart stopped for a second. She took a quiet step closer, scanning the stitching near the inside pocket. There it was, just above the seam. Faint but unmistakable. Zara Nwoko. The same embroidered initials her mother had sewn into all her custom pieces as a child. Melody didn't know. Of course she didn't. That blazer had once hung in Zara's closet, part of a wardrobe she'd long since outgrown and donated through her father's housekeeper. She studied the stitching, then looked Melody in the eye. "It suits you." Melody blinked. "What?" Zara gave a small nod. "The jacket, it suits you." Melody scoffed. "Obviously, it's exclusive." Zara turned and walked away, but inside something stirred. Not anger, but an eerie kind of sadness. A sadness that someone had borrowed her cast-offs and mistaken them for glory. In art class that afternoon, the assignment was to sketch a symbol of truth. Most students drew scales, open books, glowing hearts. Zara took her time, sketching a delicate mask, cracking from the inside out. The teacher paused at her desk and raised a brow. "Interesting interpretation, miss." "Zara," she said simply. "No last name?" Zara smiled. "Not today." Meanwhile, Melody had drawn a diamond ring, labeling it, "Truth is eternal wealth." The teacher nodded politely and moved on. Back in the dorm later that evening, Tommy and Adaise found Zara scribbling in a notebook. "What are you writing?" Adaise asked, dropping onto her bunk. "Observations." "Of what?" Tommy said, peeling a banana. "People, how they dress, what they say, what they avoid saying." "You're different," Adaise said. Zara closed her notebook. "I've lived in places where words were currency. Here, I'm just learning the exchange rate." They laughed, a soft, genuine laugh. Across the hall, Melody slammed her locker shut. She'd overheard enough to know Zara was becoming more than just a quiet girl with brains. People were warming to her, teachers, classmates, even staff, and that was a threat. The next morning, Melody cornered two juniors in the library. "You know that new girl?" she whispered. "Zara?" one asked. She's not what she seems. My mom says she's from some little village outside Ibadan. She got in on one of those pity programs. She's really smart, the other girl offered cautiously. Melody rolled her eyes. Books don't buy status. Let's see how long she lasts. As the girls left, Melody returned to her seat and adjusted the bracelet on her wrist. Cowrie shells braided in soft thread. She had no idea where it came from. Her mother had given it to her without a word during a brief holiday visit years ago. Had she known it once belonged to the girl she was mocking, maybe she'd have taken it off, but she didn't. And across the library, behind a row of encyclopedias, Zara closed the book she hadn't been reading. Her journal that night held just one sentence. There is no greater silence than watching someone wear your truth as a disguise. Excitement pulsed through the school grounds like a current. Rosewood Hall's annual Founders Charity Day had arrived, the most prestigious event of the year. A red carpet lined the courtyard, and the school orchestra tuned their violins under the wide pavilion. Students wore their finest uniforms, freshly pressed and glowing with anticipation. Will he really come this year? Adaise whispered, adjusting her sash. Mr. Nwoko? Always, Tommy replied. He funds most of the school's scholarships. It would be an insult if he didn't show. Zara stood beside them, unreadable as ever. She knew he'd come. Her father never missed anything tied to his philanthropic efforts, especially not Rosewood. At exactly noon, a black SUV glided through the main gates. The school choir fell into line, singing softly. The doors opened, and out stepped Mr. Kosiso Nwoko, dignified in his ash-gray agbada. Calm, poised. A few teachers straightened their jackets. Students murmured with awe. That's the billionaire, one junior girl whispered. Looks just like his press photos, another added. Zara kept her eyes down. The air around her tightened. Suddenly, from across the courtyard, Melody Dike emerged, dressed in a flowing gown with gold trim, loud, elegant, and demanding attention. She moved toward the car, waving at the students along the way like a pageant queen. Melody's dad didn't come, a girl behind Zara whispered. No, she said he had to fly to Singapore for a business meeting, someone answered. But Mr. Nwoko's like her uncle. They're very close. Zara's hands curled into fists. Melody reached Mr. Nwoko with outstretched arms. Uncle Kosiso! She beamed, speaking loud enough for everyone to hear. Mr. Nwoko blinked, clearly trying to place her. His security leaned in slightly, but he lifted a hand to keep things cordial. Young lady, he said with a warm but neutral smile. Nice to see you again. Enjoying school? Very much, sir, Melody replied sweetly. Thank you for everything. Cameras clicked. Students nearby murmured with envy. She just called him uncle. Did you hear that? I told you, they're family. No wonder she gets those parcel deliveries. Zara stood still among the crowd, not blinking, not breathing. The lies echoed louder than the applause. Mr. Nwoko continued to the stage, flanked by faculty and security. He delivered his usual inspiring speech about generosity, integrity, and becoming pillars of society. Zara had heard the speech before, from across living room tables and at foundation events, but today, it doesn't sound like his words belong to her. They've been borrowed too. After the speech, as he stepped down, he handed a parcel to the school matron. One of our domestic staff asked me to pass this to a girl here. Her daughter, MD, I believe that's the name. The matron nodded. Yes, sir. I'll make sure it's delivered. Zara saw it. The familiar brown paper tied with red string, labeled in her old housekeeper's handwriting. A food parcel, something comforting. Later that evening, Melody unwrapped the parcel dramatically in the common room, knowing eyes were on her. Inside was sweet coconut chin-chin, dried plantain chips, and a folded napkin. "My nanny made these," Melody declared. "She always sends them through my uncle when my father's too busy traveling." "Your uncle is the Mr. Nwoko?" one girl gasped. "Well, he's a family friend. He's basically like blood," Melody replied smoothly. "But my actual dad, he's the reason I can't leave the country right now. He's in Dubai negotiating oil logistics. He told me I need to stay focused while he closes a pipeline deal." The girls gasped with admiration. Zara sat nearby, sipping her tea. She could almost laugh. Not at the lie, but at how confident Melody was in it. How she'd worn second-hand clothes, eaten from donated hands, and climbed onto a throne built on someone else's name. And still smiled like she owned it. "She's unbelievable," Tommy muttered. "Zara, you good?" Zara nodded, quiet. Later, in their dorm room, as Melody basked in compliments and false royalty, Zara opened her journal to a fresh page. She wrote, "Let her write fiction in front of a crowd. One day, the truth will perform, and it won't need applause." The days following Founders Charity Day felt like a long echo of applause for Melody Dike. Girls followed her with starry eyes, asking about Dubai, her supposed oil tycoon father, and which shopping mall she got her lace-trimmed socks from. She never corrected them. Instead, she basked in their attention and fed the fire with more carefully placed lies. "My dad's assistant called last night," she said during evening prep. "He's sending my new MacBook from South Africa. I told him it had to be rose gold." Tommy snorted from behind her textbook. "Rosewood's about academics, not accessories." Zara gave a small smile, but kept her focus on her assignment. A paper on character versus identity in classical literature. The irony wasn't lost on her. The next morning, a large notice board in the main hallway revealed the winners of the National Essay Competition. Only 2 students from Rosewood had submitted entries. The top prize? Zara Nwoko. Principal Benson made the announcement at breakfast. "Miss Zara has brought great honor to this school. Her writing was selected from over 1,000 entries. The judging panel praised her insight and maturity." The dining hall burst into polite applause. Zara gave a small nod from her seat in the corner. Melody didn't clap. Instead, she stared at her plate, jaw tight, lips pressed into a line. "Who is she really?" Melody asked Adaze that afternoon in the dorm common room. Adaze raised a brow. "Zara? Yeah, she comes from nowhere. Speaks like she's lived abroad. Knows things most adults don't. And somehow, she's now the school's top writer?" Adaze shrugged. "Maybe she's just good." Melody didn't respond, but the doubt gnawed at her. That night, under the dim light of the corridor, Melody waited for the halls to empty. Then she crept into dorm room 6A. Zara's bunk was neat as always. Bed perfectly made, trunk locked. Books arranged alphabetically. Melody moved quickly, checking drawers, notebooks, folders. In the third drawer, tucked beneath a pile of revision cards, she found it. A greeting card with gold trim embossed with the seal of the Nwoko Foundation. Her fingers trembled as she opened it. "To Zara, we are proud of the young woman you are becoming. Continue to walk in integrity." That. She dropped the card like it had burned her. Then she noticed the envelope. Her eyes widened at the address. Zara Nwoko. Nwoko. Estate Ikoyi. Lagos. No. No, no, no. She stumbled back, staring at the name, Nwoko, the very same last name as the man she had publicly referred to as her uncle. It couldn't be. The food parcel, the familiar clothes, the earrings, the blazer, the handwriting on the wrapping. Zara wasn't a nobody. She was the Zara Nwoko, daughter of the billionaire, the very one Melody had been pretending to be connected to. Her stomach churned. Panic rose in her chest. If anyone found out, it would all collapse. Her status, her lies, her fragile kingdom. She rushed out of the room, heart pounding, the card still clutched in her trembling hand. The next day, she avoided Zara altogether, choosing instead to skip classes and hide in the library archives. She sent a message to her mother, demanding an urgent reply, but no response came. Zara, meanwhile, noticed the shift. Melody was quieter, distracted, absent from morning devotions and silent at lunch. Her usual smug remarks were gone. "You think she's okay?" Tommy asked. Zara folded her arms. "I think she's learning that lies don't grow roots." That evening, Zara opened her drawer and immediately noticed the disorder. The papers weren't aligned, the revision cards were out of place, and the card from her father, gone. She didn't react, not visibly. She sat on her bunk, eyes on the moonlight pouring through the window. Her journal remained closed on her lap, untouched, but inside she knew Melody had crossed the line, not just with stories, but now with proof. A row of talking drums echoed across the courtyard as Heritage Week kicked off at Rosewood Hall. Banners in traditional fabrics fluttered across the main lawn, and the girls paraded in outfits that celebrated the vibrant cultures of Nigeria: Yoruba, Igbo, Hausa, Tiv, Efik, and more. Even the teachers joined in, swapping high heels for embroidered wrappers and gele. But the most anticipated event of the week was the cultural showcase night, where students presented their heritage through poetry, dance, storytelling, or food. For once, popularity didn't matter. Culture was the crown. "Melody's performing tonight," Ade said, brushing her gel into shape. Tommy smirked. "Oh, please. She'll probably butcher a proverb or dance off beat to impress the judges." She said her dad taught her the real Yoruba way, Ade added with a laugh. Zara said nothing. She sat on her bed, adjusting the delicate folds of her Aso Oke wrapper. Her head tie was tied simply, not like a crown, but with the dignity of someone who understood its meaning. "You're performing too, right?" Tommy asked. Zara gave a small nod. "Yes, just a story." Ade picked at her. "What kind of story?" Zara smiled faintly. "One that doesn't need fiction." The hall buzzed with excitement that evening. Students filed in wearing ancestral colors. A few parents and alumni were seated in the front row. Mr. Nwoko's name was listed on the sponsor's roll, though he wasn't in attendance. Melody stepped onto the stage with full theatrics. She wore an exaggerated iro and buba, draped with loud beads that clinked every time she moved. Her gel was so tall it wobbled slightly as she walked. "Today," she declared, "I represent my great Yoruba lineage. My father says our bloodline traces back to kings of Ibadan. I will now perform the sacred dance of the warrior queens." Gasps and laughter rippled through the crowd, not out of admiration, but disbelief. Melody began to dance. The rhythm was off. Her gestures felt more rehearsed than remembered. Even the drummer hesitated, unsure whether to speed up or slow down. A teacher leaned to another and whispered, "This isn't from Ibadan. It looks more TikTok inspired." When Melody finished, a smattering of polite applause followed. She bowed dramatically, beaming. Tommy and Ades couldn't stop giggling. She just invented a tribe, Addis muttered. Then Zara stepped forward. She wore no flashy beads, no bright colors, just a deep indigo wrapper and coral earrings passed down from her grandmother. Her presence commanded silence before she even opened her mouth. She stood tall at the center of the stage and began to speak. Her voice was calm, even, and powerful. This is the tale of Queen Moronki, the woman who walked into war carrying only her words. She told the story, not read it, but lived it. Her intonation danced between suspense and reverence. The audience leaned forward as she spoke of ancient wisdom, betrayal, sacrifice, and grace. And when she ended, the room remained frozen for a heartbeat before erupting into applause. Even the headmistress clapped. Zara bowed simply and walked off stage. Melody, seated on the side, was fuming. She thinks she's better than everyone, she hissed under her breath. A girl beside her turned and said, she doesn't act like she's better. That's what makes her stand out. Melody's hands tightened around her shoulder. She could feel her world shrinking with every clap meant for Zara. Back in the dorms, the results were posted outside the admin block. Cultural showcase winner, Zara N. Storytelling, honorable, mention, Melody D. Cultural dance. Melody stared at the sheet. This school is so biased. You mean because you didn't win? Adaisy said flatly. I've been here longer. I deserve... What? Zara's voice cut through. Melody spun around, caught off guard. You deserve what? Zara asked, her voice calm. To be acknowledged, Melody snapped. Zara tilted her head. So do those who don't lie. Melody's face turned red. What are you implying? I'm not implying anything, Zara said, stepping forward. I'm just letting you know I see the difference between culture and costume, between legacy and illusion. And with that, she turned and walked away. Melody stood frozen. Zara didn't need to. Melody Dike stood by the open fuse box in the laundry corridor, heart thudding louder than the humming wires before her. The plan wasn't to destroy, just to scare, embarrass her, remind her that she didn't belong. Zara had stolen everything. The attention of teachers, the admiration of classmates, the silent respect Melody used to receive just for pretending to be important. Now, that quiet new girl, the one who didn't flaunt wealth, who never needed to speak loudly, was standing in everything Melody had built. She's going to take everything, unless I do something first. Melody's fingers tightened around the wire cutter. She'd overheard from a junior that Zara often did her laundry at night, especially after prep. Tonight was her night. So she waited. Cut, switch, flick, just a shot in the breaker. Enough to cause sparks, enough to create panic. Maybe even get Zara blamed for damaging school property. Then Melody walked away, her footsteps soft on the tiles. What she hadn't accounted for was the dry bedsheet too close to the wall heater, or the overloaded socket nearby, or the laundry room's broken fire detector. She returned to her room, heart racing with thrill. But within 30 minutes, her plan spun out of her control. The fire alarm screamed into the night. Girls flew from their beds, half-dressed, coughing, crying. Smoke rose from the east wing. Staff shouted instructions. Someone screamed that the corridor was filling with thick gray clouds. Move to the courtyard, a teacher ordered. But Zara had not emerged. She's not here, Adaise cried. She was helping the juniors in the common room. Tommy turned, frantic. Where is she? Then they heard it. Faint, muffled coughing echoing from the stairwell. Zara had gone back to pull out two Form 1 girls. She never made it out. When staff finally broke into the hallway, Zara was slumped against the wall, unconscious, holding one girl in her lap and the other by the wrist. Smoke coiled around her frame like a shroud. She was rushed out on a stretcher. At 2:10 a.m., Mr. Zai Nwoko's SUV skidded to a stop in front of Rosewood Hall. He ran inside before the security guard could open the gate fully. "Where is my daughter?" he demanded. "She's in the clinic," Principal Benson said, breathless. "Who did this?" he snapped. "We're investigating." Mr. Nwoko entered the infirmary to find Zara unconscious, her arm burned and her braid coated in ash. He knelt beside her, whispering her name. His daughter, his only child, had almost died. At a school he trusted. By morning, the fire was contained and Zara had stabilized. Mr. Nwoko refused to leave her side. Principal Benson convened an emergency meeting with the fire marshal, school security, and the maintenance head. The evidence came together quickly: a tampered breaker, forced wiring, camera footage showing Melody Dike entering the laundry wing alone at 9:47 p.m., then leaving 8 minutes later. Her robe, her shoes, her hair tied the same way. Unmistakable. She knew what she was doing, the technician said. This wasn't an accident. It was sabotage. "Intentional?" asked the vice principal. The technician nodded. Yes, she didn't set a fire directly, but she triggered the conditions that caused it. Melody was summoned at dawn. She stood in the principal's office, eyes wide, trembling, but not with guilt, with fear. I didn't know it would get that bad," she stammered. Principal Benson's voice was ice. "You endangered an entire dorm. One student was hospitalized. 2 others might have suffered smoke inhalation. I just wanted to..." "What?" the principal snapped. "What did you want, Melody?" "I wanted her to stop shining," Melody burst out. "She was taking everything. I just wanted her to fall a little." Mr. Nwoko stood slowly. "You nearly killed my daughter." Melody's knees buckled. The school held an emergency assembly by noon. Principal Benson's voice was solemn as she addressed the student body. "An investigation has concluded that the fire in the East Dormitory was the result of malicious tampering. The student responsible is Melody Dike." The hall fell into stunned silence. Her actions, motivated by jealousy, put lives at risk and caused injury to another student. She is hereby suspended pending a full disciplinary hearing. Girls looked around in disbelief. Some gasped. Others stared at Melody with betrayal written on their faces. Zara entered quietly with the nurse. Her arm was bandaged, her face calm. She did not look at Melody, but Melody looked at her and saw something worse than anger. She saw disappointment, and it crushed her. The atmosphere inside Rosewood Hall's disciplinary chamber was heavier than thunderclouds. Every student in the school had been summoned. Prefects lined the walls. Teachers sat in the front rows. At the center of it all, on a raised platform beneath the school crest, sat the disciplinary board. 6 members in navy robes, faces carved in stone. Zara sat beside her father, Mr. Nwoko, her arms still bandaged from the fire. Her expression was unreadable. Melody Dike stood a few paces away, alone, her face pale and streaked with dried tears. Principal Benson stepped forward. Her voice, when it came, was firm and final. After reviewing surveillance footage, student reports, and the security team's findings, it is with deep disappointment that we confirm Melody Dike's role in the incident that endangered the life of another student, Zara Nwoko. A collective gasp rippled through the room. Melody trembled. The fire in Dormitory East was no accident. It was a calculated act of vengeance rooted in envy, and it could have ended in tragedy. Melody's knees weakened. The weight of the room pressed down on her shoulders. We cannot allow Rosewood Hall's values to be compromised by such behavior, the principal continued. Therefore, with immediate effect, she paused. Melody Dike is hereby expelled from Rosewood Hall. Silence, then a low murmur spread among the students. Some gasped. A few turned to whisper. Melody stood frozen, her hands limp at her sides, her lips slightly parted in disbelief. The world tilted. No, she whispered, eyes filling. Please. No. Mr. Nwoko's face remained stern. Zara stared at the floor, hands clenched in her lap. Then Melody's legs buckled, and she dropped to her knees, sobbing openly. I'm sorry, she cried. I didn't mean for it to go that far. I was stupid. I was selfish. I let my feelings turn me into someone horrible. She raised her tear-stained face to the board. Please, I'll never do anything like this again. I'll work. I'll serve punishment. I'll do anything. Just don't throw me out. Please don't take away everything. Her voice broke. I don't have another school. I don't have another chance. Her parents, who had been standing silently at the back, rushed forward at last. Mrs. Dike, usually quiet and reserved, knelt beside her daughter and clutched her hand. Please, she whispered hoarsely. I've worked in the Nwoko home for over a decade. I've watched Zara grow. I love her like my own. But Melody is my child, my only child. She looked around desperately. We're not a rich family. We've never had much. But this scholarship, this school, it was our hope. If she's expelled, her future is gone. Mr. Dike removed his cap and stepped forward humbly. I drive a delivery van. We struggle, but we've always told Melody to work hard. We never imagined she could do something like this. He bowed low to Mr. Nwoko. Sir, please, you know my wife has served your family with dignity. Please don't let this mistake destroy our daughter's life. The board members sat silently, eyes unreadable. Melody continued to cry uncontrollably, clutching her mother's sleeve. I was wrong. I know that now. I didn't think about the consequences. I only thought about myself. Then she turned to Zara. I hurt you. I could have killed you, and yet you survived. I don't deserve your kindness. But if there's even the smallest chance you can forgive me, please, say something. Zara looked up slowly, locking eyes with a girl who had once mocked her, lied about her, and nearly ended her life. Her throat tightened. She saw not the confident, smug Melody from weeks before, but a broken girl, kneeling in a uniform that no longer belonged to her. Everyone turned toward Mr. Nwoko now, waiting. The weight of judgment now rested not on the board, but on a father and his daughter. The hall was painfully silent. The disciplinary board waited. The students held their breath. Melody's cries echoed softly in the chamber. Zara stood slowly. Mr. Nwoko turned to her, watching carefully. The fire had left a scar on her arm, both visible and unseen. But her eyes held a depth beyond her years. She looked at Melody, who knelt on the cold floor, trembling beside her parents. Then her gaze shifted to Mrs. Dike, the woman who had helped raise her since childhood, who had pressed warm soup into her hands when she had a cold, and wrapped her hair in a scarf on stormy nights. Zara remembered the soft lullabies, the careful hands, the kind eyes. She swallowed hard. My father taught me that grace is not weakness, she began quietly. And my mother, before she passed, taught me that kindness does not make you a fool. Mrs. Dike has been more than a housekeeper to us. She cared for me when I scraped my knee or missed home. Zara's voice trembled. And even though Melody tried to destroy me, even though she hated me without knowing me, I don't hate her back. Gasps fluttered through the hall. Mr. Nwoko blinked, surprised, but said nothing. I don't excuse what she did, Zara continued, but I believe she can change. I believe she needs a second chance, not just for her, but for her parents, for her mother. She turned to her father. Daddy, please don't take away their scholarship. Let her stay. Let her fix what she broke. Mr. Nwoko stared at his daughter for a long moment. His jaw tightened. The board members leaned in slightly. Finally, he stood. As a father, I have struggled with what was done to my child, he began. There's no pain deeper than knowing your daughter was hurt. Not by accident, but by someone's intention. He glanced at Melody. However, I've also raised my daughter to see people beyond their mistakes. And today, I see that lesson return to me. He turned to the board. Let her return, under strict conditions. Principal Benson nodded solemnly. The microphone was adjusted. After deep consideration, and based on the plea for mercy from the family of the injured party, the board has decided to reinstate Melody Dike's scholarship. She paused, but with the following conditions. Melody and their parents looked up, eyes wide with cautious hope. First, the principal said, Melody will offer a public apology at the next full school assembly, not only to Zara, but to the entire student body for endangering the safety and spirit of Rosewood Hall. Second, she will be assigned 6 weeks of special disciplinary duties, cleaning halls, assisting the kitchen staff, and community chores within the school compound. Third, Principal Benson's eyes narrowed. All privileges enjoyed by scholarship students, including weekend outings, free laundry, and library access, will be revoked for the remainder of the year. The murmurs began again. This was unprecedented. And lastly, she said, should Melody violate any school rule during this probation period, the scholarship will be terminated immediately and permanently. Melody could barely breathe. She nodded quickly, tears flowing again. Yes, ma'am, I understand. Thank you. Thank you so much. Mr. Dike collapsed into a chair, shoulders shaking. Mrs. Dike wept silently, clutching her daughter's hand. Zara watched it all with quiet dignity. As the crowd began to disperse, whispers swirled in every corner of the hall. Some were sympathetic, others skeptical. But no one would forget what had happened that day. Melody was not the same girl who had once strutted down the corridors, basking in false admiration. She had fallen from the highest place. And now, crawling from the dust, she would have to rebuild her life under every eye in Rosewood Hall. But perhaps, with time and humility, a full term had passed since the fire incident. The corridors of Rosewood Hall had quieted, though whispers still lingered like dust in forgotten corners. But something had changed. Melody Dike was no longer the girl who mocked from behind expensive shoes and borrowed names. Each morning, she swept the library floors with quiet hands. She served porridge in the dining hall with bowed head and tired eyes. She washed uniforms in the laundry, folding each one carefully, including Zara's. And when she passed her classmates, she looked them in the eye, not with pride, but with peace. Some ignored her, others sneered, but a few, just a few, nodded back. Forgiveness, like healing, was slow. Zara watched from a distance at first. Her burns had faded, leaving only a faint line along her arm. But her memories had not. Still, she believed what her father always said. Leadership is not about punishment, but about possibility. So when the announcement came that she had been selected as head girl for the final year, she took it with a calm grace. The principal praised her resilience, her character, and her compassion, qualities that the school now cherished more than trophies or titles. Her first decision as head girl: invite Melody to help plan the upcoming charity event. The teachers raised eyebrows. The students whispered. But Zara stood firm. People rise when you reach for them, she told the prefect board. I believe Melody can rise. At first, Melody hesitated. Are you sure you want me to help? She asked Zara, eyes full of disbelief. After everything, Zara nodded. Yes, you've earned this, not with money or lies, but with truth. And work. They worked side by side that week, quietly, respectfully. Melody listened more than she spoke, and Zara, ever calm, guided her with gentle instructions. On the day of the event, Melody stood near the back, folding tablecloths and setting water bottles. No speeches, no spotlight, just service. It was enough. Later that month, as the academic year drew to a close, the school held its valedictory ceremony. Families filled the hall. Teachers wore bright smiles. The air was thick with pride. Zara stood at the podium, the school's insignia shining behind her. Her father, Mr. Nwoko, sat in the front row beside Principal Benson. Melody sat at the very back, hands folded in her lap, wearing her simple uniform. Zara cleared her throat and began. When I returned from America, I thought I was coming back to learn about my roots, my language, my culture, my country. But what I truly learned was something deeper. I learned about people, about pain, envy, truth, and forgiveness. I learned that some wear masks not to deceive, but to survive. I learned that privilege is not something to flaunt, but something to use, to lift others. And most of all, I learned that no one is too broken to change. She paused, scanning the room. There was someone who wronged me deeply, but in the end, I saw that behind her mistakes was a girl begging for grace. Today, I want to honor not only those who excelled, but those who rose. Melody Dike, thank you for showing us that even ashes can bloom. A stunned silence, then applause, slow, then rising, until the whole hall clapped. Melody covered her mouth, eyes wide, tears brimming. No one had said her name like that in months, with kindness. After the ceremony, Zara walked to her, offering a warm embrace. You're stronger than most people ever see, she whispered. Melody hugged her back, trembling. Thank you for not giving up on me. As the girls lined up for the final group photo, Melody stood beside Zara, not as a rival, not as a liar, but as a friend. Rosewood Hall would remember the fire, but it would also remember the girl who rose from it. Dear viewers, what lessons did you take away from this dramatic tale? We would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, give us a thumbs up, share it with friends, and hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell so that you never miss out on our latest tales. Thank you for watching and be blessed.